Welcome to APABI Focus for Q1 2025. And for this version of the newsletter, we're going to be talking a little bit more about sustainability. And so for that reason, we're pleased to have Simon Thompson here, Managing Director of the Global Capacity Building Coalition, GCBC, who is not an APABI member, but did participate in our last conference in Mumbai. We're going to hear a little bit more about his organization, the sorts of changes that you're hoping to promote. First of all, you were at COP29, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about your impressions of that. Well, maybe broadly, but also specifically about the financial sector.
Of course. Hi, everybody. Yeah, although I'm not an APABI member now, many APABI members, I think, will know me from my time as Chief Executive of the Chartered Banker Institute. And of course, we are, I think, still APABI members. I'm still a fellow of the Institute, so I'll say we are. And certainly work very closely with many APABI members, including the TABF and the Indian Institute, the Malaysian Institute, the Hong Kong Institute, and many more. So it's great to have another chance to meet with and speak with some former colleagues and still, I hope, friends. So in terms of COP29, was being advertised very much as the finance COP, and I think while perhaps many of those seeking sort of very ambitious, rapid sort of action and sort of major public and private commitments and sort of plans to be announced were probably disappointed, as is often the case at an intergovernmental summit. There was actually kind of reasonable progress, but I think we also have to see COP29 as something of an interim COP that sort of moves from where there was a lot of climate action, a lot of climate finance announced at COP28 in the UAE in Dubai. And in November this year, we're looking forward to COP30 in Brazil. And I think we'll see kind of a lot more happening there in terms of private finance and the private sector, but perhaps more generally. So I guess the key announcement at COP29 was on something called the New Collective Quantified Goal, the NCQG. COP and climate finance loves its acronyms just to try and, I think, confuse everybody as much as possible. Basically what that is, it's an increase in international climate finance to $300 billion annually by 2035. That's a lot less than many wanted, especially developing countries and countries that are most impacted by climate change at the moment. But it is still a significant increase over the current $100 billion a year that's been committed, and these are the commitments by the sort of international financial institutions, so the multilateral development banks and governments. So you might think of that as kind of public finance. Then beyond that, though, there's a further up to $1.3 trillion annually to be mobilized. Now, there's really no details about that. That is being taken forward in negotiations between now and COP30 in Brazil, but it's clear that that's the gap really the private sector finance is expected to fill. So I guess that underlines really the leading role of finance in climate change, as in fact the Paris Agreement sets out in Article 2.1 C. So that's the sort of headline, I think, around sort of COP29 in terms of finance.
Yeah, that's something important to keep in mind when people talk about the finance COP. Some of that is going to be public sector, whereas some of that is going to be private sector where we're working. So turning inward now, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about your organization, because you're doing some kind of novel things, and in particular, like what's your where are you going? What's your vision for all this? And also, how do you plan to cooperate with APABI members?
So the Global Capacity Building Coalition, the GCBC, was launched at COP28. So that was just December 2023 in Dubai. And we were really an unprecedented alliance of UN agencies, multilateral development banks, private finance initiatives, philanthropic organizations, brought together to convene the global capacity building ecosystem for climate finance, with a particular focus on emerging markets and developing economies. So the aim is, we won't be doing capacity building. There's a lot of capacity building out there. We want to bring together the major funders of capacity building and the major providers of capacity building to try and identify what's really working, and to try and help the funds and support for capacity building to flow to those programs and activities that are the most impactful in terms of mobilizing climate finance. And we've been going for about a year now, and over that year we've secured the support of more than 70 members now. So again, the major funders and providers of capacity building, and together with some sort of large kind of umbrella bodies that sort of sit above finance and finance professionals, of which kind of APABI would be a great example of an umbrella, of a regional umbrella body. And sort of in aggregate now, GCBC members encompass around 5,000 public and private financial institutions, some 160 financial centres and exchanges, and millions of finance professionals in almost every country in the world. And it's a very broad church. So we talk about finance professionals. This is bankers, investors, insurers, but also the many supporting professionals, so accountants, lawyers, sort of all the various professionals that are involved in the sort of financial value chain. And over the first year, as well as kind of growing the membership, our sort of major deliverable was the launch of the beta version of the GCB's digital capacity building platform, which showcases capacity building resources shared by members. That's freely available to anybody in the world who wants to use it. So individuals, financial institutions, educators as well. So I'd certainly encourage APABI members to use it. It's currently available in 8 languages, all 6 UN languages, plus Portuguese and Indonesian. And we're gradually building that out with more and more resources. So this year we're adding learning pages with a whole range of foundation online learning for climate and sustainable finance, and certainly I think that'll be of interest to many APABI members. And the other 2 big initiatives you'll see us working on this year. Firstly, later in the year, we'll be launching a capacity building catalyst competition to identify and showcase the most impactful, the most innovative, and the most inclusive capacity building providers and programs. So that's something where, if APABI members are particularly proud of some of the work they're doing, they may want to use the competition to help showcase that. And we're also doing a large amount of research and thought leadership to try and identify what actually does work in terms of capacity building, because surprisingly there's not much evidence out there as to, we assume it works, but there's very little evidence of what really works and what is the most impactful. And if we can identify what that is and help share that, then it will help the funders fund the most impactful activities, and it will help technical assistants, education providers and others design and deliver activities that really can help unlock climate finance. In terms of how APABI members can work with us, well, I think there's probably 3 things. I mean, firstly, I would encourage all APABI members to develop your own sort of learning, CPD, resources in climate and sustainable finance, in transition finance, because this is one of those sort of long-term areas that is, regardless of the geopolitical situation, climate change is happening, climate risk is impacting on financial institutions and the real economy. There are many opportunities in transition, and it's really important that we educate finance professionals about this. So we encourage you to develop your materials, and if you can, come and join the GCBC and share your materials with others around the world. Membership is completely free. We're philanthropically funded, and the GCBC provides a great collective body for capacity building action to support climate finance. And then also, please use the GCBC platform. Highlight it to your members, to financial institutions, to finance professionals, and use some of the resources there when you're developing your own programs too. And let us know what you think, because the more you tell us about how we're doing, the better we can make the platform, and the more effective and impactful we can make the GCBC.
Okay, well, thank you for participating today, and we look forward to seeing more of your work.
That's great. Thank you, and look forward to hearing from many APABI members in the near future too.
Very good. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.